When I ate the brisket at Franklin BBQ, one thing really stood out to me. It was salty AF. Way more salty than any other brisket I ate at popular Texas barbecue joints. So being the crazy Aaron Franklin conspiracy theorist I am, I started running experiments with dry brining briskets. And it got me thinking, is the secret to Aaron Franklin's amazing briskets simply that he dry brines his briskets for a certain amount of time before cooking them? I'm gonna put this barbecue conspiracy theory to the test and find out whether it's confirmed, convincing, or just plain crazy. And I've got my tinfoil hat on so Aaron Franklin can't read my thoughts. Always one step ahead of him. Isn't that right, Reggie? Let's get smoking. To test out my theory, I sprinkled a hefty layer of Franklin's barbecue spice rub on a brisket, and I let it dry brine for 48 hours. The results were underwhelming. It wasn't nearly as salty as the brisket I ate at Franklin BBQ. So I cooked another brisket, but this time I sprinkled a layer of Franklin brisket rub, which has a lot of salt in it, and then a layer of the Franklin spice rub. I then dry brined that for 48 hours, and it still wasn't salty enough, not even close. So I cooked another brisket, this time with a layer of pure table salt, then a layer of the Franklin barbecue spice rub. I think you guys know where this is heading. Still not salty enough, so I decided to get a bit more scientific in my approach and brine some briskets with a lot more salt. But before I get into that test, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, HelloFresh. Unfortunately, my wife says I can't just feed my son brisket for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so I need to come up with quick, healthy meals for my little guy. HelloFresh helps me do that by sending me all the ingredients and chef-crafted cooking instructions right to my door, so I can just open up the package, follow the recipe, and get dinner done in 15 to 20 minutes. No grocery shopping or waiting in checkout lines, and no brain power needed at the end of a long day. They have recipes for everyone's lifestyle, whether you're trying to cut down on carbs or calories, or you just want some solid family meals with meat, starches, and veggies. They have something for even the pickiest eaters, and the fact that my 2-year-old eats it is saying a lot. At the end of a long day, me and my wife are often like, F it, let's just get Domino's. But with HelloFresh bags in the fridge, we tend to just reach for those instead because they're so quick and easy to make. So there's a cost-saving element here that's really helped us to save on takeout and delivery and be healthier in the process. HelloFresh pre-portions the ingredients and gives you really well-illustrated recipe cards that are easy to follow. The big thing I like about them is it shows the meal on the card in really nice detail, so me and my wife just look at the cards and choose which one we want to eat based on the picture. Then I just follow the recipe and boom, we have a delicious dinner super quickly. So if you're looking to save time on shopping and cooking, but still want delicious, filling home-cooked meals, then I highly recommend trying out HelloFresh. Now's the time to do it because you're going to get a very steep discount with my discount code. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code SmokeTrailsBBQ65 for 65% off plus free shipping. All right, let's get back to the final brisket experiment. According to Professor Greg Blonder, you can either equilibrium brine or gradient brine. Now, equilibrium brining a brisket would take weeks or months, and I'm assuming Franklin BBQ doesn't have that kind of time, so let's talk about gradient brining. With gradient brining, you dry or wet brine the meat for a certain amount of time before cooking. Let's say 48 hours as an example. The longer you let it brine, the deeper the brine will penetrate, but usually it doesn't penetrate very far with a large chunk of meat. Then when you cook the meat, the higher concentration of salt near the surface of the meat diffuses to the center, and the entire piece of meat evens out and becomes uniformly salty at some lesser percentage than the outer surface originally was. So let's say, for example, a 6% brine solution for 24 hours might translate to 2% overall salt by weight in the meat by the time the cook is done. And this is because salt diffusion happens a lot faster during cooking than it did in the fridge. So I did a test on 2 briskets. On the first brisket, I weighed it and multiplied its weight by 3%. I figured by the time some of the salty juices drip off during the dry brining process and well in the smoker and well wrapped and holding, that would possibly get me to my desired level of saltiness in the brisket, which is between 1 and 2%. That means I needed to add 117 grams of salt, which I evenly coated all over the brisket. For the second brisket, I multiplied its weight by 6%, which gave me 261 grams of salt to add to the brisket. This is clearly way too much salt. Professor Blonder says that levels above 2% unwind, densify, and dry out muscle fibers, so that's no bueno for what I'm trying to accomplish. But I wanted to identify what the outer limits of saltiness are so I could kind of back it off from there. I then let the brisket sit covered in plastic wrap in the fridge for 48 hours. Some viewers have told me they think Franklin's is dry brining for 24 to 48 hours, and other viewers have said that that time frame is typical for a lot of barbecue joints, so I dry brine the brisket for 2 days. Then I lit up my Yoder trailer smoker and smoked the brisket for 13 hours, starting at around 225 to 250 Fahrenheit, and then ramping up to 275 to 300 when the brisket hit the stall. I took them up to at least 190 degrees internal when I probed in every area of the brisket. Then I wrapped with tallow and clarified butter in butcher paper, and then I placed them in a pan with half a cup of water, foiled the lid tightly, and held them in my sous vide holding chest for 20 hours at a precise 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I got ready to eat some salty ass beef. Okay. This is the not salty AF brisket, and I'm gonna open this up. Okay, a lot of the tallow and butter was actually in this pan, so I'm gonna put a little bit there. It feels nice underneath, it feels pretty tender. The flat is, I mean, a little bit tough, but to be honest, my flats are always tough. And the point is feeling pretty good, so I think we can crack this guy open and see what we got here. Okay, I'm gonna make a cut right about here. And we'll take a look. Ooh, look at that. Woo, that's juicy. Juicy baby, look at me. I'm such a juicy brisket, please eat me, baby. Okay, I'm gonna take a slice of the flat here. A little quarter-incher here. All right. And now I'll get a little slice-a-rooney off the point. This should be where the burnt ends are. So I'll cut some burnt ends off right about here. Give this some slices. People keep talking about this fourth slice concept, so I want to try that out. The concept is the fourth slice into the point after cutting off the burnt ends is supposed to be the best indication of how the brisket was cooked, and it's kind of the best bite of the brisket apparently. So we will cut into that there. That's 1, 2, 3, and this is the fourth. And to be honest, this is the part of the point I always preferred the most anyway. I think it's just right in the center of the point, so obviously it's going to be the best tasting and best looking. So we'll take a look at the fourth slice, baby. Ooh, looking nice. Grains are pulling apart a little bit. I think that's a good thing though. Let's try pulling it apart. Oh, so tender. Okay, let's do the taste test. I'm really excited to see if this tastes like the brisket I ate at Franklin BBQ, at least in terms of saltiness. The rub and the flavoring on top of the brisket isn't gonna be the same, obviously, because I just used salt, but hoping for a miracle here. It's salty, definitely salty. It's really good. It's approaching the flavor of the brisket that I had at Franklin BBQ, so I think I'm onto something here with the dry brine, but this was a little bit too much salt. I think if I dialed it back a little bit, and I'll have to work on a specific ratio that I think will be the best, I think if I dialed this back maybe like 25%, that would be perfect. Okay, let's try a piece of the flat now. It's tasty, it's perfectly cooked, it's juicy, it's flavorful. Too salty though, a little bit too salty. Which really makes me worried because I'm about to eat a brisket where I put double the amount of salt on it. So I think you guys can guess what's gonna happen, but we're gonna do it anyway. Okay, here is the salty AF brisket. Let's take a look here. Looks really nice. It's got some weird hanger off piece right here that I'll throw away. All right, let's take a slice right about, yeah. Oh, that is really juicy. If I had to make a prediction right now, I'd say this is going to be really juicy, but it's going to be overly salty. Ooh. There's a lot of fat there, but I mean, I was pretty aggressive at trimming the point down here, but you can still see this fat seam went down quite a bit. That's just the way the animal grew though, so it's not much you can do about that. Let's take a slice of the flat. Oh. It's a little bit more tender than the last one. Gotta go slower. Okay, there we go. And we'll get some tallow on there. And now I'm gonna take a slice of the point. I mean, this is what I usually do. I just go like swing, and then I take a slice right here, which just so happens to be, you know, the 4th or 5th slice. So I was already doing the 4th slice anyway. Not trying to say I invented it, but whoo, that is some nice looking point action there. This is the same consistency that I experienced at Franklin BBQ. The point was very much like this one. It stayed together, but it pulled apart quite easily. Okay, let's take a bite. Okay. Whew, this is gonna be salty. Surprisingly, it's not really that much more salty than the last one. Actually, I think it's less salty. No, actually, it's really salty. It's really salty, but it's pretty much as salty as the last one that I ate. The only thing I notice is that the salt penetration got a little bit deeper, so I can taste a higher concentration of salt deeper in the meat. Okay, let's try the flat. Yeah, I mean, I got a salt tooth, guys, and I don't think I could eat this brisket if it was served up to me. I definitely wouldn't serve it to my family. So this is obviously oversalted, but interestingly, it's still edible. And the extreme salt flavor on this brisket is more consistent with the brisket that I ate at Franklin than other briskets that I cook with just the regular amount of salt and pepper and whatever rub I put on. So that's telling me that we're getting somewhere here. I just think that the actual ratio of salt I'm using in the dry brine needs to come down a little bit, and then I think I'll be bang on. But that's for another video. Man, this brisket's really good though. It's just overly salty, but not to toot my own horn or anything, but my briskets are getting better. So what did I learn? Well, first, the brisket that I tried in this experiment, both of them tasted a lot closer to the brisket that I ate at Franklin BBQ than any other experimental brisket that I've done in the past. The second thing I learned is that both briskets were way too salty at between 3 to 6%, and I definitely needed to back that down, but I also needed to make room for the Franklin BBQ spice because all I used in this video was spice, but I also need to use salt plus pepper plus the Franklin BBQ spice to get it closer to what I ate at Franklin BBQ. So based on the label, I know it has 160 milligrams per gram, so I multiplied that by 2.5 to get the total salt content of 400 milligrams or 0.4 grams per gram. Then I do some math and it works out to around 3 tablespoons of the Franklin rub and 61 grams or 3 tablespoons of table salt to get roughly 2% salt by weight for a 9-pound brisket. Interestingly, 61 grams of salt is pretty close to the 2 ounces or 57 grams of salt that Aaron Franklin says he uses per brisket in his book, A Meat Smoking Manifesto. The third thing that I learned is that the briskets that I did in these tests were not salty enough in the interior of the meat. When I ate the Franklin brisket, this is gonna sound weird, but I took some home to my hotel room for leftovers, and the next morning I ate it, but as I ate it, I noticed that a lot of salt was kind of leaching out of the meat, so I sucked on it a little bit, and as my saliva mixed with it, it kept on extracting salt like I was chewing on beef jerky. So that was a really clear indication to me that there might be something going on here with dry brining. But when I did the same and I ate the center of the brisket slices in this experiment on both briskets, so I removed the bark, I removed the exterior couple of millimeters of the brisket, and I ate just the center of a couple slices, it wasn't that same experience. It didn't have any salt in the center of the brisket. So that told me that even with that extreme amount of salt that I put on the brisket, it didn't have enough time in the fridge or during the cooking process altogether to get to the center of the meat and penetrate that far down. So I think by brining for an extra couple of days, let's say 4 days, and decreasing that level of saltiness to 2% salt by weight, I'm gonna get very close to what I experienced at Franklin BBQ, but that's for another video. So is this barbecue theory confirmed, convincing, or just plain crazy? Well, a lot of people say in my comment section that they really think that Aaron Franklin is dry brining his briskets, and there's an equal amount of people that say that no, he never has dry brined his briskets before and he doesn't do that. And both of them could be true. What Aaron Franklin did 5 years ago might be completely different from what he does today. So I don't really know, but I would say that I don't really have any other explanation for why the Franklin brisket was so salty, especially on the inside of the meat. That to me only really happens with some kind kind of brining process. So I don't have another explanation, but I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you have another explanation for why Franklin BBQ brisket is so salty? Maybe it's brining during the long hold period. Maybe they're adding extra salt before they wrap the briskets. Let me know in the comment section below, and let me know if you think that Aaron Franklin dry brines his briskets. I'd like to hear from you. And if you're looking for more ways to engage with the Smoke Trails barbecue community, you can join my Patreon. You can look at my Instagram page and follow me there. You can join the Smoke Trails Barbecue Nerds Facebook group. I'll link all of that in the description section below, and I'll definitely see you in the next video. Until then, happy smoking, guys.